Right when many were hoping for a quiet Christmas, Russia launched one of its most powerful air assaults on Ukraine. Now, this wasn't just another strike. This was a massive, coordinated attack across the entire country. So today, we're going to break down this strategy, the devastating human cost, and what this huge escalation really means for the war going forward. So let's just set the scene here. For weeks, things in Kyiv had been relatively quiet. You can imagine people feeling a fragile sense of normalcy. And then, in an instant, all of that is just shattered. Air raid sirens start blaring, explosions rock the city, and that grim reality comes crashing back in. This war is nowhere near over. Of course, the reaction from Ukraine's President Zelensky was immediate. And he didn't just condemn the attack, he essentially called out the entire international community. His message was sharp and to the point. Whatever pressure the world is putting on Russia, it's not enough. And Putin, he feels like he can act without any real consequences. So right away, this becomes more than just a military event. It's a diplomatic crisis. But beyond all the high-level politics and military strategy, this was an attack on people. So let's zoom in a bit and look at the direct human impact of these strikes. This right here, this is the reality on the ground. For Liza and Masha, who lived right next to an apartment block that got hit, it was absolutely terrifying. And their words, angry and sad and tired, that last one really hits home. It captures this profound exhaustion, this emotional weight that people are carrying after years of conflict. It's not just about buildings, it's about lives being completely upended. The initial reports came in with 3 confirmed deaths. And, in the context of a war, that might sound like a small number. But behind that single digit is an immeasurable, heartbreaking loss for entire families. And one of those 3 lives was a 4-year-old child, a little girl. Doctors apparently fought to save her, but they couldn't. It's just a devastating reminder that the heaviest price in this war is being paid by the most innocent. But this attack wasn't random. It wasn't just about causing terror. It was tactical. Beyond the human tragedy, there was a chillingly clear strategic goal to cripple Ukraine's ability to get through the winter. And you have to understand, this wasn't a one-off thing. It was the 9th massive assault on Ukraine's energy grid this year alone. It's a clear pattern, right? A sustained campaign to try and plunge the country into darkness and cold just as winter is really starting to bite. And the damage was, well, it was extensive. Several regions had their power supply almost completely knocked out. Think about that. Officials warned that a huge port city like Odessa could be powerless for days. And with temperatures dropping toward freezing, this isn't just an inconvenience. It's a direct threat to the survival of millions of people. But Ukraine didn't just take this. They fought back. And what happened next was this enormous, sprawling battle in the sky, really testing the limits of the country's air defense systems. I mean, just look at the sheer scale of this attack. Over 600 drones and nearly 40 missiles launched in one night. It's staggering. But the response is, frankly, even more remarkable. Ukraine's Air Force reported shooting down 587 of those drones and 34 of the missiles. That is an absolutely incredible defensive success against such an overwhelming barrage. This attack also sent ripples right across the border. Poland, a NATO member, actually scrambled its own fighter jets. They called it a preventative mission to secure their airspace. And that single action just goes to show how quickly this conflict can escalate and pull in other nations, even if it's indirectly. So all of this violence on the battlefield, it really forces you to ask a tough question. Is there any hope at all for diplomacy right now? Unfortunately, the outlook seems pretty grim. Right before this assault, there was a tiny glimmer of hope. In talks that were held in Florida, the U.S. actually proposed a Christmas truce. Russia's response, a flat-out rejection. And then the Kremlin came out and publicly dismissed the talks, saying they weren't any kind of breakthrough. So the gap between the two sides seems as wide as it's ever been. And the timing here is absolutely critical. This massive air attack happened just one day after a high-ranking Russian general was killed by a car bomb in Moscow. Now, Russia has blamed Ukraine for that killing, and while we can't draw a straight line, this sequence of events points to a really dangerous cycle of escalation and retaliation. So that's where we are, a holiday season that was marked not by a truce, but by one of the largest air attacks of the entire year. It really forces us to ask, when diplomacy is failing and the attacks are getting worse, Even during a time that's meant to symbolize peace, what does a path to ending this war even look like?